We have a real generation gap going on right now between old people and young people because Chris Haynes sat in the middle of our show and he's got some old school video games behind him, and Stugatz just shouted into the din, "My God, Chris Haynes, you've got the most amazing studio." Except for 20-year-olds, what he's got is a museum of old that only old people care about, except for those jerseys and an odd collection, an unusual collection of jerseys behind him. So, Chris Haynes, thank you for being on the show. We want the latest NBA information on Jimmy Butler and others, but what are you going for with your studio setup? And thank you for having it that way, because it does appeal to me and Stugatz and Greg Cody, but I'm guessing not many people under 40.
And I'm 42, by the way. So no, I just going for that vintage look, a vintage sporting arcade look. I'm all into collecting like old antiques. Like I have an old Coca-Cola vending machine. I'm talking about like this vending machine was like being used in the 60s.
Like Tab. It has Tab on it. What are the
exactly.
Tab is one of the options.
What are the drinks on that
Pepsi. It's a Pepsi.
Oh,
it's
God,
a Pepsi. It's a Pepsi. Well, I have old mailboxes. I have like old signs. Like, so that's what I was kind of going for. You know, I wanted, but basically what I want to do is just, you know, stake my territory in this area with all the 5 women I have living in this house. And so when they come in here and they see all this, they know there's nothing in here for them. So they shouldn't be coming in here, but that was the plan.
Are you a hoarder?
I wouldn't say I'm a hoarder. No, I'm not. No, I'm
There's
not a
a
hoarder
fine line between collector and hoarder, though. Like we can acknowledge that.
I'm not a hoarder at all. Like this, I'm not a junkie. It's not like Sanford and Son where you're just collecting a bunch of junk. No, I really like. I look for stuff. I really look for stuff like things that are still cool, especially if they can still be used. Like I just like old vintage antiques.
What's the thing that you have that you've collected that you're proudest of?
Well, but just if I may, just a second, I don't want to just skip past the casual insult of the man is a collector of antique things, and Billy has accused him of hoarding. Like,
no. I didn't know. I asked the question.
The lines are blurred.
He's got a taste appreciation on fine things that say something about him, and Billy has accused him of not being able to discard junk. It makes him defend himself with, "I'm not Sanford and Son."
I asked because, like, have you ever seen the show American Pickers, for example, where they just drive around the country and they look for people's crap, and then they're like, "Oh, this is a treasure," and then they go and they sell it like in their thrift stores. Like, I'm just kind of wondering if that's the world that you found yourself in, where you're going around on weekends and you find yourself in Nebraska and you're in a barn and you're looking for old Pepsi machines, you know?
Yeah, I do. I do frequent a lot of thrift stores, Salvation Army stores, because, you know, every now and then you can just find some things that people just discarded and they just consider it old, and, you know, but I like to bring it back to life a little bit, you know, like I got old barbecue pits. Like I'm talking about, I have let me stop, pits, not plural. I have a barbecue pit. That's probably was made late 60s.
Right.
And I kind of restored it. So one day I'll show you guys some pictures of what I'm working with. But it's not too much, but yeah, it is a hobby of mine for sure.
You know what?
Sound like a hoarder.
Yeah, you know what I learned the difference between hoarding and collecting too is, Dan, is that it's not rust, it's patina. That's what you say. When something's all rust, you say, no, it has some patina on it.
I don't understand what any of you are doing, because I believe that Antique Roadshow is one of the great stories of privilege that you will find anywhere in America because of the amount of bargains that people like Greg Cody have in their garage, and they don't know it because they've got some valuable heirloom that's been passed down through generations. And Chris Haynes is out here saying, I'll go to a thrift store in Nebraska to see if somebody like Greg Cody has discarded some $3,000 thing for $11 because he's a fool.
But that's hoarding. I mean,
it's not hoarding. It's value propositions. It's not in any way hoarding.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
I really don't understand what you guys are doing.
Here, this will settle it. Chris, have you ever purchased something at any of these stores and then thrown it away?
No.
Hoarding.
No. If I purchase it, no, I purchase it.
It's not hoarding. It's treasure
that's
hunting.
Not hoarding.
It's treasure hunting.
The ability to not throw anything away is hoarding.
There's value in it.
I have a question for you. Seems like the Heat are hoarding Jimmy Butler because he doesn't want to be here, and they don't want him here, but they don't want to trade him anywhere. So what are they doing with Jimmy Butler?
Well, they made it known that they're entertaining offers. As I can tell right now from the people that I've spoke with around the league, the Miami Heat aren't anywhere close to a Jimmy Butler trade. What I can tell you right now is that I think he's a few games removed. I don't know the games off the top of my head. Maybe you guys know how many games left from his suspension, but I'm told he is fully prepared to return to play and play for the Miami Heat if he is not moved by the time his suspension is lifted. So, Jimmy Butler right now, I'm willing, I'm gonna share what I can. So you guys ask away, but it's been a very difficult season for him. Starting the off season with Pat Riley's comments and some things that happened over the summer that kind of led to where we all at today. So it's been very interesting. So definitely, this is something that I'm definitely monitoring until it's resolved.
At Jimmy's age, what do you put his trade value
at?
Well,
the thing that I wanted to talk to you about, Chris, adding on to that, and I do want you to answer Stugatz's question about what it is your most valuable collectible is. I actually wanted to have Mark Stein on today. No insult to you. You're one of the great information guys. But his story had some details that I had not seen anywhere. And I'm thinking that now we will have leaks back and forth because there's going to be strategic maneuvering around some of this. And furthermore, yeah, Jimmy wants to go to Phoenix, but Bradley Beal's most onerous contract in the sport right now. I've never even heard of someone saying of a contract in the sport that can't be moved. Every contract can be moved, but the Beal one seems worse than all the others. If Jimmy thinks he's going to get to Phoenix and that Pat Riley's just going to take that contract and the third team's not going to take it, he's out of his mind. Like, that's not how this is going to go at the end. I would assume they'd just keep Jimmy Butler for as long as they want and say, go ahead and opt out and see if you can get $52 million somewhere else. Like that, Jimmy Butler's not going to get to go to Phoenix because Miami's got to take on Beal. That's the worst contract you'll find in the sport, is it not? Because it's a no-trade clause.
Yeah, I mean, that's why only few players have those, and Bradley Beal is one of them, and he is what's making this situation, that much more difficult. And if you think about it, Phoenix Suns, they desperately want Jimmy Butler. Like, they're trying to do all that they can. They're trying to uncut, look under every rock and cranny and try to figure out if there's a move that can be made, and if there's a team that will take on Bradley Beal's deal, and it has to be a team that is willing to take that on. And that is the troublesome part about this situation. So that's why I'm saying, like, I thought it was pretty scarce to think that Jimmy Butler would be traded during this 7-game suspension in the first place. And so if Phoenix is indeed the ideal destination. So yeah, I'm with you, Dan. It's going to be tough. But as soon, as trade deadline approaches, teams start getting desperate, and Bradley Beal over there in Phoenix, I reported last week, they moved him to the bench, and people started to speculate, well, is this Phoenix trying to make life miserable for Bradley, which would, I guess, for their standpoint, hopefully invoke that he will, decline that.
But Chris, if I may, because the human interest part of this is interesting to me. Bradley Beal went there because that was going to be the big three. It's not good enough. The other bigger two of the big three now would prefer Jimmy Butler to Bradley Beal. And Bradley Beal's like, nope, that's why I have this no trade. You can go and do whatever it is you want. I'm not going to be sent somewhere even though I don't have value because my contract is too bad.
You're stuck with me.
Just because you guys want to win a championship with Jimmy Butler. Like, no.
Yeah. No doubt. Brad picked, due to that no trade clause, Phoenix were one of the teams that he picked that he will, use that for and to get over there. So he's not going to spend all that time in Washington. He really did like Washington, but he understood it was time to leave. But Phoenix was one of the few teams that he chose to go to. So you're not just going to be able to just get him up and out that quick after spending all that time in Washington, and now he's in Phoenix and think he's just going to make life easier for you guys just to get Jimmy Butler. No, it has to work for him as well. And so as of right now, I'm still told that Phoenix hasn't reached the point where they even can't, approach Bradley Beal about the situation. So as of right now, it's still pretty early.
What is the second most onerous contract in the sport?
Woo, that is a good question.
Is it far and away Bradley Beal? Like, is it no question the contract that can't be moved, if there is such a thing, is Bradley Beal's?
I just think just then, if he didn't have that no trade clause, he's a movable piece. That makes it difficult. And and look, I think people will say, people will look at Bradley Beal, that he's probably not the player he was in Washington. He will argue, no, he's still that player. He's still capable of doing that, but he's in a different role and he's asked to do different things. He's asked to sacrifice. He made comments publicly about, the team trying to, put him into a point guard role. He's never been that guy. And I've heard that the coaching staff over there, they've tried to tell him that he needs to be more like Drew Holiday. And that's not Bradley Beal. That's not his game. So at the end of the day, even though he's not experiencing his best season over there and he's not in an ideal fit for his talent, he's still not going to just be moved anywhere, any place. Because even though basketball is not going good, Phoenix, the weather is still pretty good over there. So he's not just going to be shipped anywhere against his will.
Chris, after the initial reports were that Jimmy was willing to play anywhere in the NBA, basically outside of Miami, you furthered the story along by mentioning that teams like Memphis and others had been told not to trade for Jimmy Butler. Now, reporting, I believe it's from Mark Stein and Jake Fisher together on this one, talks about Jimmy taking private flights, staying in Airbnbs away from the team. And the story has sort of gotten to this place of talking about the personality and things that locally, some reporters knew down here for years with Jimmy. When you hear all of this stuff start to come out, what are your initial reactions to that?
So I do have some insight from Jimmy's camp and those individuals. And to speak from the flights, I was told that, I had to take some notes here. In the last 5 years, that I was told Jimmy took less than 5 separate flights from the team, and 4 of them were during the finals against Denver when his father was sick. So they're clearly trying to diminish, I guess I should say, the narrative that he was just flying privately and separately frequently. And so with that being said, that's that. And then from Jimmy Butler's perspective, let me just add this. So over the summer, I was told, let me see. Yeah, through the summer. So that's Pat Riley. He had his comments. And I remember, I don't know if you guys remember, but I was doing the playoffs. It was the Heat. I want to say Heat Boston. And that's when I was doing sidelines for TNT at the time. And, I was able to speak with Jimmy during the game. And he had some comments. It was kind of, egging on the Boston Celtics fan base. And then I believe he had some more comments later that day or the next day. And I think that's what Pat Riley was referring to about, if you're not playing, you probably should stay quiet. Obviously, that rubbed Jimmy the wrong way. He felt like that was taking things too far. And both sides, I'm trying to take you guys to the Exodus, and both sides, Pat Riley was informed that a face-to-face was needed, was necessary with Jimmy after all that went down. And Jimmy was under the assumption that Pat was going to visit him in the offseason, have that face-to-face. Jimmy told him about the off-season place he has in San Diego, and that it never materialized. Pat never went out there. So they didn't communicate via text, phone conversation, or face-to-face. The last time they communicated was January 1st, when the Heat brought him into the office and talked about they didn't think he was putting forth the effort. So from there all the way back to the end of last season, that was the time frame in which there was no communication. And there were some other things that happened in that summer too that kind of got it to an uneasy place for Jimmy and the Heat at the start of the season, start of training camp, I should say. So there's just a lot of things behind the scenes.
Let's go through it, though, because I was suspicious when Jimmy showed up late to media day, because all of this has been brewing for a while, and the reporting on this has been pretty detailed. I should tell people Chris Haynes is a veteran NBA reporter. His brand new YouTube channel is called Haynes Briefs. It debuted earlier in January, and he has worked for Turner Sports covering NBA games and reporting on the league. Before Turner, he was with ESPN, Yahoo Sports, Comcast, Sportsnet, Northwest, covering the Blazers as well.
Haynes Brief. I mean, that's good.
Yes.
Underwear.
Yes, that's it. That's it. He's getting in there, and he's showing you the innards of people's underwear, because what you're telling us with your reporting is that Jimmy Butler was indeed pissed off about shut up, you didn't play on the Celtics, and it escalates from there with pettiness and silliness to we're not talking and I want a face-to-face and we need a face-to-face and we're equals here. And then Pat Riley's saying, nah, not giving you face-to-face. We're not equals here. You're saying it's some of that you can't treat stars like that anymore. This'll be what happens.
Yeah, that happened as well. And there was something else, Dan, too, that kind of rubbed him the wrong way as well. Towards the end of last summer, Jimmy and them were informed of an accounting error.
Oh boy.
Towards the end of last summer, in which he didn't get his pay. He didn't get his paycheck on that period. And it took the team about 10 days for him to, get his payment. But, that's never happened. And, so you got all of that going on top of an account error where he didn't get his paycheck. And so things were just feeling a little bit off at that point. And then during the offseason, his agent, Bernie Lee, informed the Miami Heat that, hey, if we want to get an extension done, we're going to do it in the offseason. And if no deal is done when media day hits or when training camp hits, then they're just going to play the season out and see what happens from there. And so that deadline went and passed. Still, there was no communication. There was nothing. There was nothing, indicating that they were going to do something or not going to do something. It just passed. So he goes into training camp, and now there's a new offense and a new defense that's being installed. And from Jimmy's standpoint, it doesn't cater to his skill set. So now they want to shoot more threes, and they want to play more zone defense. And you look at, just the way his season started off, his usage rate is the lowest it's been in the last 10 years. I believe the 2014-15 season. You have to go back that far. So these are all the things behind the scenes that are,
there's more though, Chris, please. So take us through, and thank you. Take us through what Jimmy feels about how the Heat handled all the time he needed for his taking care of the death of his father. And I would imagine I don't know who this information benefits, the private plane stuff, but you're hitting a real soft personal spot on a prideful person if he suspects that the Heat is leaking that while he was trying to visit his father, he was being unprofessional.
Yeah. And that hurt as well, for sure. It's leaking and it's coming out that the Heat are entertaining offers. Now, this is before, obviously, Pat Riley put it out publicly in a statement that they are. And so, that's bothering him, because now it's going on for a few weeks. It's just this constant, seemed like every other day there was something about Jimmy being sided with this team or being connected with this team. The Heat are interested in here or there. And so from their standpoint, they're looking at it like, who is leaking this? And it looks like it's coming directly from the team. And so again, like these are, this is just, creating a sour environment and a sour relationship from what otherwise has been pretty good. He's had a really good run with Miami, a couple finals trips. And so, it's just been a lot. And then once he got back, so he, there's a lot. Like I really have to, I really got to look at a lot of my notes that I have. But
keep going though, Chris. Go take us through.
I'm trying to remember
hold on,
as much
but
as I can.
I know the reason I know Stugotz wants to get in here because he's desperate. Everyone here right now is.
He can read me the notes if he wants.
Yeah, but everyone here is desperate to give you. They want takes from you, and I want the reporting because the reporting is fresh. And this is one of the great guys in the information business. His information is not wrong, so it's not gossip. It's journalistically reported, and because he's old school, written it down, he doesn't want to get anything wrong. So, Chris, take your time. I want to go through. We'll get to Zion Williamson and the other stuff, but I want to show people the innards of how a human relationship deteriorates into divorce when two people think they're responsible for the success of the other person. And so please take us through whatever you think is a lot here, because I want people to understand why it is that Jimmy Butler might be hurt. And also I want them to understand why the pressure of get in there and do your damn job already. You're being paid $50 million is the weight of the machine on his shoulders when he's sitting here. Wait a minute, I was grieving my father's death. We're going to play this dirty? We're going to play dirty on personal flights when I don't even know who that benefits. Who does it benefit to have leaked that there are personal flights during the finals? All that does is cause Jimmy Butler heartache that's personal. But is the Heat leaking that?
Yeah, and that's what we don't know. There's people that talk from both sides, different sides of the table. So you never know what it is. But from their standpoint, it looks that way. It looks like it could be coming from the team. And, I tried to reach out to the Heat before I came on, Dan, just to give a heads up about some of the things that I had and some of the things that I was going to say. I didn't get a response back in time. But with that being said, you take back, when he was away, when he was sick. So what would this be? This would be late December, possibly. Yeah, late December when he was he was absent for a few days, few games. He came back. He was still working out at the facility. He came back, and then he had to address media the first day he got back to practice. And I don't think he appreciated that, because at that time, the trade rumors were getting out about the Heat possibly looking to move him. And so he felt it was uncomfortable and uncalled for that the first day that he gets back, he has to answer to news that's being put out by who? He can only assume. And so, you got those things. And then let's get to the game in which the Heat criticized him, brought him into the office the next day, and basically called into question his effort, or lack thereof, I should say. And that's when, his agent, Bernie Lee, informed him, like, look, guys, Jimmy's trying to do what he can. He's not in an ideal situation as far as basketball fit anymore, because it seemed like the team is going away from featuring him as the marquee player. And he said that's fine, but now you're questioning if he's given the effort. And excuse me while I look at my notes on this, because I want to make sure I don't get this wrong.
I will give you.
That's a reporter.
I will give you a moment, because some of this is unfair because the reporting, he's doing it and he's trying to be fair. So I will filibuster for a moment here for you by being fascinated by a number of the things here. One of which includes, yes, of course, as Tyler Hero becomes an all-star with all of the usage rate, Jimmy Butler's not going to like the transition out of Jimmy Butler very much. Like, why would he like that? It decreases his value as he heads into a contract dispute. Like, it's the corporate move you make while also allegedly improving your team, but you're asking Jimmy Butler to be the second player on Tyler Hero's team, and that's a little complicated for Jimmy Butler's ego given what he's done the last 5 years.
Yeah, and he believed he still can play at that level. He talked about, he said it publicly, I forgot what video it was, that feel like he still have a few years left of his prime. So when the Heat accused him of a lackluster effort in that game, his agent brought up some data from Second Spectrum showcasing that in that game that Jimmy had his highest miles per hour rate in that game, meaning he was, ran the fastest, the fastest he has in any game that season, and he was the top player as far as acceleration in that game. And so, they were just trying, I'm just showing like the back and forth, just showing like the data they're trying to present to showcase like, no, he was not.
Well, what do you think is true? You're very fair. You're very responsible. What do you believe to be true here? Because Stugotz is just dying to yell, is there anything that Jimmy Butler appreciates? And get your ass back on the court.
I mean, he's making $50 million this year, more than LeBron, more than Jason Tatum, and he doesn't seem to appreciate anything that he'd have done.
I think he's human, and I think he's frustrated with the direction of where the team is headed on the basketball court, that is. And then when you have your work ethic questioned, something that you can. I've covered some of the best players in this world, in this game. LeBron James, talk about work ethic. LeBron James, Chris Paul, guys like that. Jimmy Butler's in that mode as well. And so to hear something like that, that's calling a question. Now you can say like, look, man, is his demeanor a little bit off? Can you see it visibly that he's frustrated? Maybe, but I couldn't sit here and tell you that he's not giving.
Yeah, I understand. We're really parsing the hairs of is he trying, but he's also joyless because he's not happy. And when you're not happy, it can look like you're trying less. If you're bringing to the office a whole bunch of before and after the games. I know Roy's dressed as a gladiator. He brings it in every day. Every single day he storms in here with a mountain of shit on his shoulders.
I mean, they broke into his cars today.
But Jeremy has a question for you here, and I want to get out of the Jimmy Butler conversation after this.
Chris, I'm fascinated here because obviously the personal relationships have deteriorated over the course of several years, but really in particular since this summer. And yet, a lot of the conversations we're having on the court fit. Well, Jimmy wanted regular season help, now seemingly has it based off the way that they're revamping the offense. Would all of this be a moot point if he had just gotten paid this offseason? Would any of that really be mattering right now in the same way that it does when he hasn't been paid?
I was told in this situation that it's not about the money. It's about more so the relationship and the way things have gone.
It's always about the money, Chris. Always.
That's what
I mean, they missed a paycheck. I mean,
it's not about the money, but call accounting. Call accounting. They're 10 days late.
He believes he's going to get paid regardless, whether that's with Miami or with somewhere else. So,
but is he? Because this is an interesting test now, Chris. Because I'm going to sound like a Heat mouthpiece here, but when I talk about owners' contracts, if Jimmy Butler is only willing to play as a malcontent, everyone knows to be careful trading for that. And so whether you do test Jimmy Butler on Jimmy, do you think you're going to get more than $52 million next year? Because you might have to come back here and accept that option after all of this. And are you going to try and do this again? Because we're fine with just the salary cap space if we get it for Jimmy Butler, and that becomes a game of chicken. If we're not going to get, if the Heat are looking at you and saying they're not going to get anything good for Jimmy Butler, well, we'll just keep you here, and then we'll get the cap space, and we'll just take the rest of your year and a half of value and not make you tradable as a 36-year-old star that's worth more than $52 million. I could make the argument, if I was arguing on their behalf, that his is the second most onerous contract if those are the conditions.
That's a good. You make good points, valid points. I would say the Los Angeles Clippers kind of had a similar situation. I wouldn't say as toxic as this one has become with Paul George. They just let him. Usually, you don't let a player like that caliber go away without getting anything in return. They just completely washed their hands from and allowed Paul George to go sign with Philly, and he went and got his number, went and got a max deal. So Jimmy Butler, one thing about Jimmy is, man, he's going to bet on himself. I know this is a long time ago, but he turned down a rookie extension offer. I believe it was like $44 million at that time, which was a nice figure at that time for him. And he turned it down, ended up making an all-star team and got paid handsomely later on. So that's just his makeup. That's his DNA. I'm just telling you, he believes and he feels like whether he's getting paid with Miami, he feel like he's going to get paid elsewhere as well. So
do you believe it?
I'm trying my best. The way I believe it for a few teams, and I believe it just the way that Phoenix has been so aggressive in trying to get this done and trying to see what they can do. I don't believe it for the entire league for sure, but I do believe it for a few teams.
But you only need one suitor, and the idea, like desperate Phoenix is the most desperate thing there is. Like that owner's willing to make seismic change because he's like, yeah, bring me Bradley Beal's contract, and now flip Bradley Beal's contract. Like that's the team you want interested in. They're the only one who's going to be desperate about it.
Yeah, and you look at what they've done with the coaches. They've had 3 coaches in 3 years. Fired Monty Williams, brought in Frank Vogel, fired him after 1 season. Mike Budenholzer, I believe the Suns have won, I believe, 3 in a row to this point, so they're kind of turning it around. But I was hearing some things about players being frustrated, and there's being tension in that locker room. Right before I reported about Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic being benched. So there's still things going on over there. But what they've shown is that. That owner, he's aggressive over there. He's going to make change, even if it looks like it might be a rush job. He's going to do what he feels is needed to make that team better.
I want to get you out of here, and I don't know which of the 2 questions to ask you. So you choose, okay? Would you prefer to talk about the drama and all of the interesting around Zion Williamson, or would you prefer to talk about the wonderful basketball moment of Cade Cunningham going into Madison Square Garden and announcing himself as an all-star because he insists on making the Detroit Pistons something that they were supposed to be when they gave Monty Williams all of that money, and all of a sudden they immediately get rid of the richest coach in the NBA and they become a legitimate team that can do something like that in Madison Square Garden?
Let's talk about both, Dan.
Wow.
If I make you choose, I'm doing the sociological.
He chose both.
I'm doing the test of choose the games or the transaction. Which one's more interesting?
Or your favorite collectible. I mean, we could go there.
Or whether you're a hoarder.
Let's go with Cade, because I want to give the Detroit Pistons some love. This is a team that's been floundering at the bottom of the Eastern Conference for countless years. We wondered if they were ever going to, in this decade, make any type of noise. And Cade Cunningham, there were a lot of people that wrote him off. And even was it last offseason? Yeah, it was last offseason. He got his extension. People were wondering if he was going to get his extension. Well, he got it, got the rookie max extension, and now he's flourishing. He's doing an unbelievable job. He's a legitimate all-star candidate. I mean, playing the point guard position at that size is just a nightmare for opposing defenses. So, you got to give him credit. You got to give the coaching staff credit. They brought in veteran guys over there, Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris. So that's one thing, Dan, a lot of young teams have been doing as of late, is not bringing in veteran guys to help nourish, to help mentor and teach these youngsters how to play. A lot of times when you have young teams and no veterans in there, man, these guys are not putting together the proper effort and professionalism on the court, and they're surely not putting out that professionalism off the court. You need veteran guys like that, and I think Detroit made a great decision in bringing in vets to help cultivate this team, and you can see the fruits of that labor right now.
Billy wants the Zion take.
Give it to me.
I think
he still plays.
I think we're too far down the road in Zion's career for him to keep having these mishaps. I reported, it was repeatedly tardy slips for practices and shoot-arounds, and the last straw was him being late to catch the team flight to Philadelphia. When you have a target on your back, and he has a target on his back just from the numerous injuries and the constant people berating him about his conditioning and not taking it seriously. When you have all that against you already, you can't behave in this type of manner, because all it's going to do is highlight and reveal that you really aren't taking it seriously. And so he has to change that narrative. He looks good. The way he's come back this season, he probably looks like the best physical shape I've seen him in as a pro. But he has to continue, and these things cannot happen. And one more thing I want to say about Zion. For the Pelicans, it was only a 1-game suspension. But teams don't like, for 1-game suspension, that's light. Teams don't like to put their business out on Front Street like that, especially pertaining to Zion. Zion doesn't like things being leaked about him. The organization knows that. So for them to come out publicly and suspend him for a game just shows you where they're at with Zion and how fed up and frustrated they are with his lack of professionalism up to this point. So that's what it showed me, that's what it showed me mostly. It's just the fact that they felt it was time to do something.
How do you feel about Funyuns?
I used to like them as a kid.
Right.
Not so much now. Bad breath. You need gum and peppermints right after.
That's true. Billy stinks. Billy's whole face stinks.
I'm not making out with anyone. I don't care.
Thank you, Chris. Good seeing you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the information. Anything on the notes there that we didn't get to? And if you want to get to the favorite collectible, I did not get to your favorite of all the junk that you're hoarding in your house.
I got a lot of notes, guys. 2 pages worth of notes, but I gotta save some for Haynes briefs. Well, I love you so much, Dan. I had to give you something.
That's a great name,
thank you. How about the best collectible for Stugatz? A little gift on the way out. We appreciate all the information. You saw how desperate we were about it. We were salivating around. Give us morsels of the gossip. You saw us. It was pathetic. It was desperate.
Yeah, it's all good. That's why I got nothing but love for y'all. But my best collectible, let me throw away my best collectible. I will say it has to be. Oh well. I have a 1953 grand piano. My mom plays the piano.
Wow.
My mom plays the piano. I inherited it from her. I don't play the piano, but that's what I have. That's probably my most prized possession. I wouldn't sell that. Because I think her grandmother gave that to her. So that's something I'll keep.
All right.
Everything else for sale. Everything else
is for sale. It's Haynes's brief is the YouTube link. Get over there to where he's doing stuff because the information is very good. Thank you, Chris. Good talking to you.
Thank you, guys.
Let's do Against the Spread here, Chris Cody. Let's do it.
That's right, it's time for
Against the
Spread. And it's presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Roy, kick us off.
All right, the Panthers are at the Devils tonight. The Devils are a 1.5 favorite. The Panthers are coming off of a loss in Philadelphia where they blew a 2-goal lead. The Panthers have covered the puck line in 23 of the last 24 games when they were underdogs versus Eastern Conference teams. That's including a 5-game winning streak. However, they have lost 8 straight games as road underdogs on the second leg
All right,
of a
he's
back-to-back.
a champion gladiator homer. He is picking.
Something's got to give.
They don't have Ekblad tonight. Also, the Devils won 6 straight home games. But I think the Panthers will cover tonight against the spread.
That's how you do it with useful information,
really
man. Yes.
Speaking of useful information,
Proud of you.
you know Matt Stafford has the highest winning percentage in the NFL as a quarterback in December, January, and February since joining the Rams. He has 15 touchdowns, and he's 5-1 in the postseason as a Ram. They go into Philadelphia. They're +6 in this game.
Yep.
Taking the Rams
Thank
+6.
A lot of people are doing that. Billy, did you like that information? People were eating up the Chris Haynes information.
Good info.
Did you like it? I didn't sense that you liked it.
That was good.
It was about 15 minutes too long.
He's a hoarder.
20, maybe.
From fireside conversations to football Sundays, winter means more moments with the coolest people in your life. Make these moments even better with Miller Lite, the great-tasting light beer for people who love beer. A new year is a perfect time for friends, family, and a great-tasting light beer. Tastes like Miller time. You know, 2024 had its ups, had its downs, had a lot of moments in it. For me, many of those moments, I had a Miller Lite right there by my side. I supplemented my time by making it a Miller time. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Miller Lite has taste you know you can depend on. No games, no gimmicks, just a great beer for people who love beer. Miller Lite is brewed for taste. It hits different than other light beers, and it has simple ingredients like malted barley for rich, balanced toffee note flavors and that iconic golden color. The original light beer since 1975 and still the very best one. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Dan to find delivery options near you. or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time! Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.